Please subscribe to this channel, so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 961. Heartbreak him. Everyone knew that this match was staked on the future of these few outstanding individuals. No matter which side lost, in the future, their status will be lower than a dog's in the eye of the other. In fact, they would no longer be able to raise their heads anymore in the misty illusory manner. Verbal agreement being no guarantee, a written blood oath had been drafted as proof. The names of both sides had been etched with their own blood and jointly witnessed by the leaders and future successors of all the powerful forces in the misty illusionary manner. There were no longer any grounds for backing out right now. No one would have thought that this match would actually have such huge implications. The few talents that the Jun family had gathered were even beginning to regret slightly right now. For them to have their current great achievements in their own craft meant that they were naturally not idiots. If they knew that it would be this serious, they would not have come. It was just a moment of anger, and they had been too affected by the Jun family two brothers' words, causing them to behave rashly. Now, it was difficult for them to retreat or advance. If they won, they would undoubtedly end up offending this free and natural physique prodigy. For now, Mo Jun Xie's strength was still weak, so it was not that serious. However, the more serious thing was that they would have offended Miao Xiao Miao as well. To offend Miao Xiao Miao was the same as offending the entire Miao family. And the terrifying results of that was something that none of them could handle. But if they lost, that would mean that they'd offended the Jun family. At that time, all of them might even die without a burial spot. Whether they advanced or retreated, it was still a path of death. The moment Jun Moxie began putting his name onto the blood oath contract, Miao Xiao Miao's anxious voice transmitted into his ears. "Do you have any confidence?" This young lady Miao had already decided. If he said that he wasn't confident, she would immediately create chaos here, beating everyone up, and even directly burn down the entire inn. Even if she was accused of creating trouble on purpose, she would tear down this entire event. Jun Moxie looked at her and smiled. 100%. Those two words caused Miao Xiao Miao to be so angered that she stomped her foot with exasperation, cursing several times in her heart. Idiot. Self-arrogant prick. But left with no choice, she could only look helplessly as that fellow wrote his name on the blood oath contract. But unexpectedly, she actually felt a strange calm in her heart, as if this idiot and self-arrogant fellow in front of her really had the ability. But how could that be possible? A row of 17 tables were quickly placed in the middle of the hall, and Miao Xiao Miao sat at the very center of them. Everyone else was directly chased 10 zhang away, turning into mere spectators. Even Zhan Yushu was not an exception. Only Zhan Qingfeng was allowed to observe from a closer distance. As for the other geniuses, they were all looking at each other nervously. No one was willing to stick their heads out and be the first to come out. If the first match was won, everything would naturally be fine. But if the first person who came out lost, it was the equivalent of them giving up their little lives. Looking at that casually seated free and natural physique guy, everyone felt extremely unhappy. Why do we have to stand, while you get to sit there and wait? However, the other party was a person that was going to handle a long round of cycled matches. He was fighting for himself. But what about them? Young Master Mo. This one is called Lin Qingyin. To be the first person to seek young Master Mo's guidance, please consider this as just casting a brick to attract jade. One, just as everyone was unable to make up their minds, a green-robed youth who stood at the very last row walked out quietly and greeted Jun Moxie. Lin Qingyin, a very elegant name indeed. From the looks of it, Brother Lin should be a musician. Not bad. Not bad. Does Brother Lin intend to have a competition on music? Jun Moxie said with a faint smile. Indeed. Regrettably, this one has never cultivated in Xian Qi before, and the only thing I'm somewhat confident in is music. Lin Qingyin said calmly. The reason for me stepping out today is firstly because I am truly a little unconvinced by Brother Mo. Secondly, there are other reasons that compel me. After today's matter, regardless of win or loss, I, Lin Qingyin, will never see Brother Mo again. Otherwise, the guilt in my heart will be too much to bear. Jun Moxie smiled lightly and nodded. From the looks of it, Brother Lin has some inhibitions in your heart. One must know that music is the voice of the heart. If you cannot play from your heart, it will be difficult to ever rise to the peak of musical attainments. There is actually no need to feel guilty. Brother Lin can just treat this as making a friend through music. At least, that is how I feel. Just the words, music is the voice of the heart, is enough for me to tell that Brother Mo also has great attainments in music. To be able to meet a fellow friend who also appreciates music is a great happiness. Regrettably, I am forced by circumstances. Lin Qingyin laughed bitterly as he steeled his face. There is no point in speaking too much. A few days ago, this one had a sudden inspiration. Managing to compose this song called Heartbreak Him. May Brother Mo please give me your guidance. As he said that, Lin Qingyin shook his sleeves and an inky green jade xiao appeared in his hand. Lowering his head, he gently stroked the xiao and said, although I was born in a millennia-old musical family, I am the most familiar with the jade xiao. It is also the only skill that I am proficient in. This xiao had already accompanied me for 26 years. It is also the only thing of which I pursue to reach the peak of in this life. Apart from the xiao, there is nothing else I desire. In other words, you only know how to play the xiao. You are not proficient in, or completely do not know how to play other musical instruments, like the zither or flute. Jun Moxie asked. That's right. I've said just now. Apart from the xiao, there is nothing else I seek. Lin Qingyin raised his head and his eyes gleamed with passion. Impressive. It is indeed better to be a master of one thing than be a jack of all trades. It's a pity that too few people understand such reasoning. For Brother Lin to understand this, it truly causes me to look at you differently. Looks like today's match will be more interesting than I initially expected. Jun Moxie's face grew more serious. Brother Mo is indeed a kindred soul. Lin Qingyin's eyes lit up and he looked at him deeply. Turning around, he looked at Zhan Yushu. Young Master Zhan, regardless of the results of this competition, I hope that young Master Zhan can keep your word and stop making things difficult for my Lin family. Only in this way can I play to the best of my ability. The moment these words came out, everyone looked up with realization. So it turned out that this Lin Qingyin had been coerced by Zhan Yushu to come here. Zhan Yushu snorted coldly and said, my Zhan family has always done things in an open and above-board manner. When have we ever gone back on things that we've promised? You can set your mind at ease. Or do you want me to write you a blood oath contract as well? Lin Qingyin narrowed his eyes and clasped his fists. I wouldn't dare. Hopefully, second young Master Zhan's will honor your words. Lin Qingyin will thank you first now. After this match ends, this Lin will bid my farewell, departing with my family. In this life, we will never step into Heart Fantasy City again. May young Master Zhan set your mind at ease. Jun Xie snorted coldly again, not saying anything. Today was truly too shameful. But if they ultimately won, all that they've suffered today would still be worth it. Miao Xiao Miao sucked in a deep breath and gritted her teeth. She actually felt a great impulse to speak out at the moment about the matter. Although she didn't know about the details of what happened, but it was a fact that Jun Xie had used shady methods to force Lin Qingyin. To think that the Zhan family would actually be capable of such things. She trusted that as long as she promised the safety of the Lin family and pursued the matter, she could stop this round of contest. Even tearing the entire competition apart on the basis that all the contestants had been coerced and bought over by the Zhan family unfairly. But after much consideration, she still kept her mouth shut. Because, could she really guarantee the safety of the Lin family? Perhaps the Miao family behind her could do it. But would the Miao family be willing to offend the current Zhan family who was as dazzling as the sun in the sky? Although the Zhan family was despicable, shameless, and hateful, what could they do? As the saying went, the winners are right, and the losers are wrong. As long as the Zhan family came out victorious today, no one would send themselves to their deaths by accusing them of using underhanded methods to win. Victory would make them heroes. Knowing that Jun Xie would not go back on his words after promising in front of so many people, Lin Qingyin nodded and turned around with a relaxed face. Looking at Jun Moxie, he bowed deeply. Brother Mo, today, I will use this Xiao to seek your guidance on the path of music today. Please. Lin Qingyin's robes fluttered gently in the wind as he stood still, not playing immediately. After a long time, he slowly raised the Xiao as an indescribable look of sorrow appeared in his eyes. His face was calm and still, and with every inch that the Xiao was brought closer to his mouth, the sorrow in his eyes grew more pronounced. When the first note of the Xiao rang out, the sorrow in his eyes had already condensed to an extreme level. Remarkably, his face was still and calm as before. The serene melody of the Xiao rang out clearly, permeating to every corner of the large hall. Whether one understood music or not, their hearts could not help resonating clearly with the notes. It felt as if the person they loved most in their lives had already departed forever. The pain and regret was something that could never be mended. This was a pain and sorrow that was impossible to describe with words. Whether their cultivation was high or not, or if their mental state was strong, everyone was drawn in by the tune without exceptions. This was completely different from any hallucination or Xian ability. It was purely the power of music. Music was an exceptionally amazing thing which could rouse the deepest emotions in a person's heart. With the gradual deepening of the flute sound, Jun Moxie could clearly sense the heavy helplessness and sorrow in Lin Qingyin's heart. In this instant, he heard the trials and pains that this young master who was born in a musical family had experienced. Among the 17 judges, there was a renowned musician of the generation. When he heard this sorrowful tune, his face turned solemn and he sighed repeatedly. Miao Xiao Miao, who sat in the middle, had a white veil covering her face, which masked her expression. But her eyes actually revealed some emotion, and her lips moved lightly. If one could understand lip reading, they would hear the words. Soon, the spring splendor fades. From the flowers in the woods too soon. There's no stopping the chill rain at dawn, or the shrill wind at night. The memories of the rouge-colored tears, of the stays overnight amid cups. When will all that happen again? Life is long in sadness as water keeps flowing and flowing east. This tune had moved nearly everybody present to tears. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 962. Acting shamelessly. The song had already ended, but Lin Qingyin remained standing there silently. His expression hadn't changed, and only his eyes flickered with emotion. The jade xiao still hung beside his lips, and the sorrowful air around him had not dissipated in the slightest. Complete silence. After a long time, he finally lowered his hand, and the crowd was able to breathe again. With a very heavy tone, he asked Jun Moxie, "Brother Mo, for this first match, I do not ask that Brother Mo compete with me in xiao techniques. I only wish to ask Brother Mo, what did you think of my Heartbreak hymn? What are the flaws? And who did I compose the song for? If there are any deficiencies, how do I improve? In the future, what shall my path be?" When Lin Qingyin said the words, "I do not ask that Brother Mo compete with me in xiao techniques," Zhan Yushu's face turned exceedingly unsightly, and a ruthless expression appeared in his eyes. But when he heard the following words, his face relaxed again. From the way he saw it, Lin Qingyin's questions were simply making things difficult for his opponent on purpose. Everyone had their own story and experiences. Inspirations were all gleaned from their personal feelings, which resulting in them composing their own works. Wanting others to determine who the song was written for after listening to it just one time? This Mo Junyi hadn't even met Lin Qingyin before, so how would he know who he wrote it for? Wasn't that just making things hard for others? As for where the mistake was, and how to improve upon it, that was an even more ridiculous request. Zhan Yushu had been talented since a young age and had also dabbled in music for a period, having some understanding on the subject. Even he felt that this was an exceedingly great tune. For such an excellent song, how was one supposed to tell where the mistake was? Everyone's state of heart was different, and just the slightest disharmony from the heart of the composer would mean a world of difference in the interpretation of the music. Apart from yourself as its composer, how was anyone else supposed to tell where the mistake was? As for the last sentence, where should his path be in the future, that was even more difficult. You are a person who pursues nothing but music, could your path still be on Xian Qi cultivation? But that question actually had a meaning of not being willing to continue on that path. In that case, it was basically impossible to tell what path you should take in the future. Looks like this fellow hadn't forgotten my warning. Let's see how this Mo Junyi handles this round. Zhan Yushu could not help but to feel a smugness in his heart. In fact, it was not only Zhan Yushu who thought this way. Regardless of whether they knew music or not, everyone also had the same thoughts. In that moment, a hint of admiration appeared in their eyes as they looked at Lin Qingyin. Looks like this fellow is a really vicious dog that knows how to bite. Not only does he not bark, he even obtains the favorable impression of the others first, before unexpectedly sinking his teeth in. A single bite is enough to claim a person's life. Looking at the deep pondering expression on that free and natural physique prodigy's face, everyone sneered with interest. In fact, everyone felt a little regretful in their hearts. From the looks of it, this competition might end in a single match, leaving them with nothing to see. The crowd all scoffed as if they were looking at an interesting show. But what these people didn't know was that Lin Qingyin's questions might have seemed difficult, but he was actually already going easy on his opponent. This was something that those who are not immersed in music would not understand. Because he'd actually told Jun Moxie all the answers using his xiao. As long as Jun Moxie repeated everything that he'd conveyed in the music, he would pass with ease. This Heartbreak hymn is indeed not bad. It's an excellent song that one cannot get enough of. There is nothing wrong with the song itself. It's a song that wrenches the heart. with nowhere to find a knowing ear. It could be said to be reaching the acme of perfection and beauty. Jun Moxie said with a smile. But from the perspective of musicality, the emotions conveyed are too biased, causing it to be a blemish in an otherwise perfect song. When young Master Jun's words came out of his mouth, all the musician experts on the judges' panel immediately sat up straight as they stared at him unblinkingly, afraid to miss a single word. A song is nothing but a medium with which musicians use to convey their emotions. Whether it is sorrow, pain, happiness, love, anger, hatred, battle, or slaughter, everything can be transmitted through songs. However, apart from transmitting the emotions of the performer, the musician must not forget their responsibility towards the audience. A truly excellent song should be pleasant but not obscene, mournful but not distressing. After listening to it, others should feel more relaxed in their hearts. Since it's a sorrowful song, the intention is to evoke the same feeling in the listener's heart, helping them release their own emotions and relieve the stress in their minds. But Brother Lin's song is too exceedingly sorrowful that after listening to it, one would end up feeling even more desperately hopeless about their life. That is quite different from the original intentions of music. Although it is not as extreme as traveling in the opposite direction, it still feels as if you'd gone somewhat astray of the path. Jun Moxie smiled lightly and continued. One could say that the successful parts of this song are also where its greatest flaws lie. Well said. An old man on the judges' panel stood up and said excitedly. The others who understood music also nodded in agreement. Such an analysis was not only extremely relevant to the point, it had also pointed out the critical point with a single stroke. Lin Qingyin fell into deep thought, and nodded solemnly. Then, in that case, how should it be remedied? Remedied? That can be both simple and difficult. Jun Moxie said faintly. Saying that might sound contradictory because music is something that comes from the heart. I've just said that this song has already attained the level of near perfection, and there are no visible flaws. The true problem is with your heart. For such a sad and moving song, you actually maintained the same expression while playing it out. From the looks of it, you had performed it with a mental state of one who'd completely lost hope. The name Heartbreak had already expressed the emotions of this song. The so-called remedy is just a switch in the state of mind when you play this song. The moment your state of mind changes, the feelings evoked by the song will change as well. If you cannot do that, it won't matter no matter how you try to change the song and the melody. This is why I said that it is both easy and difficult. Or perhaps you will retort that if you changed your state of mind, it would change the original meaning and emotions of this song. But I will ask you in return, should a person's life really be so devoid of hope? Why not try looking at it from another angle? Try turning hopelessness and pain into remembrance and memory. That should be enough. I trust that the person who could inspire you enough to compose this song so wholeheartedly must have a very deep relationship with you. Moreover, there must be many beautiful memories between the two of you. These memories are your most precious treasures that no one else can invade or rob you of. If you think of these memories while you play the xiao, even weaving your emotions into the song, I trust that it will definitely be very different. At that time, we will hear your sorrow, longing, and reminiscence instead of hopeless grief. At that time, this heartbreak hymn will be a completely perfect song, existing eternally with that person in Brother Lin's heart. Lin Qingyin's shoulders trembled slightly as his eyes suddenly filled with tears. As for who it's written for, I've already hinted at this in my previous answer. If I'm not wrong, Brother Lin has written this for a beautiful young woman. Jun Moxie looked at him warmly and continued. And your grief should be because this beauty had passed away because of an accident, not because her love is for another. Otherwise, your song would definitely have a hint of resentment or hate. Instead, there was only. Lin Qingyin sighed deeply and closed his eyes as 2 lines of tears ran down his cheeks. You're right. Brother Mo is absolutely right. So what if the song is perfect? A song that wrenches the heart, with nary to find a knowing ear. Xiao Ling, my Xiao Ling. We will never meet again. A face smiling as sweetly as a flower appeared in front of his tightly shut eyes again. Her eyes clear and gentle, cute and beautiful. In the blink of an eye, he was looking at her, his eyes filled with tears, as she lay on the bed, withering due to sickness. In that moment, Lin Qingyin seemed to have returned to the past as he sat under the moon with her, gazing into her eyes while he swore a solemn pledge to accompany her through life and death, good times and bad. Xiao Ling ah. Lin Qingyin sighed deeply again as tears dripped from his cheeks. Jun Moxie fell silent and recited softly. 'Twas hard to meet thee and then bid farewell. The eastern wind blew weak and all flowers fell. Silkworms weave until death do them relax. Candles weep nightly to the last drop of wax. One brother Lin has deep emotions, gaining the admiration of us all. But if that Miss Xiao Ling saw you like this, she would surely feel exceedingly saddened and worried. This poem was undoubtedly one of the best works of Li Shangyin. He'd only recited half of the poem, and everyone was immediately moved. Miao Xiao Miao mouthed the few sentences of the poems with an intoxicated look on her face. Such deep emotions, such beautiful elegance, why is every sentence that comes out of his mouth so amazing? In that moment, her heart trembled as a realization appeared in her mind. If he hadn't experienced such an emotion personally, how could he write such a touching poem? Could it be that he already, when she thought here, a strange emotion appeared in Miao Xiao Miao's heart. It was as if her heart ached for him, and also a bit of gloominess for herself. Silkworms weave until death do them relax. Candles weep nightly to the last drop of wax. Lin Qingyin mumbled in a shocked manner as he extricated himself from the sorrowful state and asked, "Dare I ask Brother Mo, what should I do now?" "Go as your heart wills. Do as your heart wills." Jun Moxie looked somewhat pitifully at this heartbroken youth. Brother Lin has his own path to thread. You should know what you should do, and what you shouldn't do. It's not necessarily a bad thing to be full of emotions. But you must not let your emotions cage you. Break out of this cage. And with the vast skies and wide earth, where could you not go? Many thanks to Brother Mo for your pointers. Lin Qingyin said with great gratitude on his face, thanking him in a heartfelt way. Brother Mo's comprehensions in the path of music are vastly superior to me. This one is willing to admit my loss. Her. Pleasant but not obscene. Mournful but not distressing. Qingyin will forever remember Brother Mo's guidance. It's only a pity that after today, we will never meet again. I hope that Brother Mo can turn calamities into fortune, accomplishing great deeds quickly. Many thanks to Brother Lin for your well wishes. Jun Moxie said with a slight smile. Lin Qingyin's words about turning comedies into fortune naturally referred to this dangerous situation. Disguising his curses for the Zhan family brothers in his words of blessing, how could Jun Moxie not understand this much? Lin Qingyin laughed aloud and kept his jade xiao, returning to his original spot. The first match had ended with the free and natural physique young prodigy Mo's complete victory. Seeing the judges all raising up the victory signs for Jun Moxie, Zhan Yushu's face turned exceedingly ugly. This round was a contest on music. But Mo Jun Xie only said a few words and passed without displaying even a bit of musical ability. How can he be declared the winner just like this? Only if he played a song and performed better than young Master Lin will we be convinced. A voice rang out, instantly echoing out loudly. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 963. A song that wrenches the heart. This was clearly a troublemaker looking to disrupt things on purpose. The competitor himself had already declared his loss, and the judges had also given their results. Creating trouble like this was simply too much, and wanting Jun Moxie to perform a song even more sad than this was also exceedingly shameless. Young Master Jun had already said very clearly just now that while the song itself was perfect, the only problem laid in the state of mind of the performer, which resulted in the entire performance being flawed. But that person actually wanted Jun Moxie to perform a song that was superior to that one. It was simply making things difficult for others. Victory and defeat is already clear. Are you going to create trouble on purpose? Miao Xiao Miao furrowed her brows and her eyes gleamed. It was obvious that she was exceedingly infuriated. He didn't even touch a musical instrument. How can you say that victory and defeat are clear? The voice persisted relentlessly. Jun Moxie had already determined the location of the person speaking long ago. It was a fellow standing far away among the crowd, lowering his head and hiding himself while shouting loudly. Normally people who shouted like that should be extremely agitated, not like this guilty-looking fellow who was afraid of being recognized. Zhan Qingfeng did not say anything, but there was a look of glee in his eyes. That person was someone they had arranged previously. In case Mo Jun Xie won, no matter with what reason, they would find some ways to oppose it. Even if it was picking a bone from an egg, they would still try to flip his victory into a loss. Jun Moxie swept his spiritual sense out and instantly understood the situation. Scoffing lightly in his heart, he thought to himself, if these people knew that this young master was that legendary person who performed that laughing proudly in the pugilistic world back at Chrysanthemum City's Tongguan Hall, I'm afraid you won't be so eager to give this young master a chance to perform. That Heartbreak him could indeed be considered as perfect. However, there were also rank differentiations between perfection. As the saying goes, justice comes from the heart of the people. Fine then. Since someone has raised their doubts, I shall perform a song for everyone. In case others want to find faults and act shamelessly. Am I right? First young Master Zhan? Jun Moxie said with a faint smile as he looked at Zhan Qingfeng. That is natural. One needs to win with overwhelming ability in order to convince the crowd. Zhan Qingfeng returned the smile and said, victory and defeat cannot be determined with just a few skillful words. Exactly. Speaking of not determining victory or defeat with just a few words, Jun Moxie chuckled lightly. One shouldn't rely on sneaky tricks, using people who don't even dare to show their faces to create trouble. The brother who spoke up just now, since you had the guts to use your voice, why don't you step out and speak? I can guarantee you that I will definitely not pursue the matter, whether you're speaking for yourself or on behalf of others. Miao Xiao Miao burst out in laughter when she heard those words. With her abilities, she'd naturally also found that person. When Jun Moxie was exchanging words with Zhan Qingfeng, she'd instantly realized everything. Ever since they reached here, she'd never seen that person and Zhan Qingfeng say a single word. From the looks of it, that person had clearly been planted by Zhan Qingfeng. To think that this fellow was actually so farsighted to such a level. already making plans to deal with a defeat in advance. But because of this, she felt even more wary of Zhang Qingfeng. Wouldn't this mean that all those actions he'd shown her earlier had all been a part of his plan? Those great efforts he'd spent to get into her good books, what had all that been for? Or rather, what does the Zhan family want? This was the first time that Miao Xiao Miao linked the matter to the Zhan family, and she could not help but feel a great shock in her heart. Brother Lin, I didn't expect this meeting today and didn't bring my instrument. Can I borrow Brother Lin's jade xiao? Jun Moxie asked with a slight smile. Lin Qingyin agreed immediately and took out his jade xiao. After washing it carefully in clear water, he wiped it with his personal handkerchief and passed it to Jun Moxie. Such an action was actually the greatest mark of respect from a musician. With Lin Qingyin's status as a great musician, he naturally had his own standing, and it was normally impossible for him to part with his personal instrument which had never left his side, lending it to another person. But Lin Qingyin's action had shocked everyone. Because to Lin Qingyin, Mo Junyi wanting to borrow his xiao was an honor to him. As he received the xiao, it was so light that Jun Moxie felt as if there was nothing in his hand. In that moment, he could help but to exclaim "Good xiao." There was practically no weight to this jade xiao at all. From the touch and feel of it, this was most likely only possible with the exceedingly rare light spirit jade. A good xiao also needs to be paired with a capable musician. In my hands, this jade xiao is somewhat wasted. Hopefully, it can produce a different sound now that it's in Brother Mo's hands. Lin Qingyin smiled generously and took a step back. Brother Lin is too modest. Jun Moxie smiled lightly and said. Looking at the jade xiao in his hand, he nodded lightly. The tune I'm about to perform today is composed by a lady and has been circulated for several hundred years now. Perhaps because the heavens were jealous of her beauty. This woman, peerless in her looks, was frail and sickly, living her life with brows furrowed in pain. Before the age of 20, she'd already left the mortal world. A country toppling beauty like that was thus covered in earth and left to rot, drawing the unceasing sighs of countless people in the world. But due to us being far away and remote, this song had yet to reach this place. If not for a fortuitous encounter back then, I would not have learnt this song. Today, I will perform this song as a tribute to her. As he said that, countless people pricked their ears and sat up attentively. From the looks of it, this was a song that nobody had ever heard of before. And it was even the work of a woman. Though this miss had a beautiful face, she rarely went out due to her frail constitution which consigned her to her bed. Normally, her greatest joy would be to gaze at flowers in front of her window and look at the clouds drifting through the sky. That day, the flowers in the garden had all bloomed, and her heart was filled with joy as she played to her heart's content. In her happiness, she decided that she would go out again the following morning. But that night, a huge wind swept through, followed by a storm. All the flowers which had bloomed that day were destroyed in a single night. As he spoke to her, Miao Xiao Miao could not help but gasp lightly, thinking to herself that if she were that girl, she would definitely feel exceedingly sad. Especially since this girl was weak and sickly, her heart was definitely frail. The sudden storm had surely destroyed much of her hopes and happiness. So wouldn't she feel even worse? And indeed, Jun Moxie continued. When she heard the storm that night, she already felt incomparably anxious. When the sun finally rose the next day, she covered her body and rushed out to the garden to see her favorite flowers. But the sight before her eyes was just a cruel scene of scattered red petals. The girl was completely heartbroken. The resplendent flowers of yesterday had become like this in just a single day. Even so, the dejected girl could not bear to see those petals remain desecrated on the ground like that. So, she swept all of them up and collected them in a bag, burying them in the ground. As she was burying the petals, she suddenly thought of herself. Wasn't she just like those flowers? With her sickness, she likely would not be able to live for long. Today, she was burying the flowers. But who would be burying her in the days to come? Perhaps due to her melancholic emotions, or her state of mind, the girl wrote a poem titled, "Today, the song I'm going to perform is a xiao rendition composed by her." And in just 3 days after writing that song, the girl passed away. This little sister truly can't wait to listen to this song of the burial of flowers. Meow Xiao Meow said with rapt attention and interest. But before Brother Mo starts performing, can you write this poem down for us first? Since Miss Meow has requested it, it is naturally possible. Jun Moxie said with a smile. With a wave of her hand, a brush and a long scroll of paper were brought out and placed before her. Smiling lightly, she said, "Brother Mo only needs to recite, and this little sister will write it down." That is fine as well. Jun Moxie understood her meaning. In a while, he might need to compete in calligraphy. It was still not time for him to reveal his cards yet. The two's words had successfully infected the crowd with anticipation for this song of the burial of flowers even before the performance. Firstly, the storytelling created a scene in the hearts of the crowd. Then, with the lyrics written down and placed before the crowd before completing it with a xiao rendition, it would undoubtedly maximize the resonance of the music in the hearts of the crowd. Without further delay, Meow Xiao Meow dipped her brush in ink, and as Jun Moxie recited, the song of the burial of flowers, which had shocked the earth and was recited by everyone in his previous life, was finally introduced for the first time in this other world, revealing its dazzling radiance. Flowers fade and fly, and flying fill the sky. Their bloom departs, their perfume gone, yet who stands pitying by? And wandering threads of gossamer on the summer house are seen, and ailing catkins lightly dew steeped strike the embroidered screen. A girl within the inner rooms, I mourn that spring is done. A veil of sorrow binds my heart, and solace there is none. I pass into the garden, and I turn to use my hoe, treading over fallen glories as I lightly come and go. There are willow sprays and flowers of elm, and these have scent enough. I care not if the peach and plum are stripped from every bough. The peach tree and the plum tree too next year may bloom again. But next year, in the inner rooms, tell me, shall I remain? By the third moon new fragrant nests shall see the light of day. New swallows fly among the beams, each on its thoughtless way. Next year once more they'll seek their food among the painted flowers. But I may go, and beams may go, and with them swallow bowers. 300 days and 60 make a year, and therein lurk daggers of wind and swords of frost to do their cruel work. How long will last the fair fresh flower which bright and brighter glows? One morning its petals float away, but to where no one knows. Gay blooming buds attract the eye, faded they're lost to sight. Oh, let me sadly bury them beside these steps tonight. Alone, unseen, I seize my hoe, with many a bitter tear. They fall upon the Niked stem and stains of blood appear. The nightjar now has ceased to mourn. The dawn comes on apace. I seize my hoe and close the gates, leaving the burying place. But not until sunbeams dot the wall does slumber soothe my care. The cold rain pattering on the pane as I lie shivering there. You wonder that with flowing tears my youthful cheek is wet. They partly rise from angry thoughts, and partly from regret. regret that spring comes suddenly, and anger that it cannot last. No sound to announce its approach, or warn us when it's past. Last night within the garden sad songs were faintly heard, sung, as I knew, by spirits, spirits of flower and bird. We cannot keep them here with us, these much-loved birds and flowers. They sing but for a season's space, and bloom a few short hours. If only I on a feathered wing might soar aloft and fly, with flower spirits I would seek the rooms within the sky, but high in the air what grave is there? No, give me an embroidered bag within to lay their charms. And Mother Earth, pure Mother Earth, shall hide them in her arms. Thus those sweet forms which spotless came shall spotless go again, nor pass dirty with mud and filth along some filthy drain. Farewell, dear flowers, forever now, thus buried as was best. I have not yet divined when I with you shall sink to rest. I who can bury flowers like this a laughing-stock shall be. I cannot say in days to come what hands shall bury me. See how when spring begins to fail each opening flower fades. So too there is a time of age and death for beautiful maids. And when the fleeting spring is gone, and days of beauty over, flowers fall, and lovely maidens die, and both are known no more. As Jun Moxie recited and Miao Xiao Miao wrote, the entire crowd was engrossed in the sorrowful yet beautiful and graceful poem. Even the two Jean brothers who were determined to cause trouble for Jun Moxie did not say a single word. To think that there was such beautiful poetry in this world. Every word and every phrase was extremely relatable, that helplessness, that free and easy attitude towards life and death, using flowers as a metaphor for her own aloof pride. To think that such a pure-hearted and free-spirited girl had actually existed in this world before. Please subscribe to this channel, so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 964. Youth Chess King. As for Miao Xiao Miao, she'd already become deeply entranced as each line of the poem was unraveled before her. 300 days and 60 make a year, and therein lurk daggers of wind and swords of frost to do their cruel work. How long will last the fair fresh flower which bright and brighter glows? One morning its petals float away, but to where no one knows. But high in the air, what grave is there? No, give me an embroidered bag within to lay their charms. And Mother Earth, pure Mother Earth, shall hide them in her arms. Thus those sweet forms which spotless came shall spotless go again, nor pass dirty with mud and filth along some filthy drain. Farewell, dear flowers, forever now, thus buried as was best. I have not yet divined when I with you shall sink to rest. I who can bury flowers like this a laughing-stock shall be. I cannot say in days to come what hands shall bury me. See how when spring begins to fail each opening flower fades. So too there is a time of age and death for beautiful maids. And when the fleeting spring is gone, and days of beauty over, flowers fall, and lovely maidens die, and both are known no more. As she wrote, Miao Xiao Miao's eyes grew wet uncontrollably. It was as if she could see that frail and sickly girl sweeping up the petals with great effort, gathering them together into a hand-woven bag and burying them tenderly, finally passing away into a mere soul. In that moment, Miao Xiao Miao even felt as if that girl was herself. Although I am not frail and sickly, my life in the misty illusory manner is controlled and restricted. At any time, I could be sacrificed away like an item for the family, forced to marry to someone I don't like, or even detest. If that is my fate, it's really no better than no. Give me an embroidered bag within to lay their charms. And Mother Earth, pure Mother Earth, shall hide them in her arms. Thus those sweet forms which spotless came shall spotless go again. Nor pass dirty with mud and filth along some filthy drain. Just as everyone was still immersed in the beauty of the poem, a faint xiao tune pierced through the silence, seemingly drifting down from the edges of the heavens, ringing out clearly. Song of the Burial of Flowers. A single song of the burial of flowers, enrapturing the souls of hundreds. The cry of the xiao was soft and mournful, as if weeping and complaining. Those innumerable flowers of purple and red, all manners of charm, the 1,000 different types of amorous feelings, all of it blossomed in the hearts of the crowd, before slowly disappearing and turning into nothingness and melancholy. Even after the song was finished, no one spoke for a long, long time. It was as if that beautiful xiao tune was still reverberating through the hall, echoing in everyone's hearts endlessly. AI, this song. A musical expert wiped his eyes with emotion. It's truly peerless, akin to a tune from the heavens in the mortal realm. To be able to hear it just once has already made this life worth living. Yes. Miao Xiao Miao had a dazed expression on her face as her mind still lingered in the music. Her voice was wispy and faint, as if her soul was reluctant to part with the beauty in her mind. Speaking slowly as if she weren't aware of her reality, she nodded lightly. This is the most touching xiao rendition I've ever heard in my life. Reached the acme of perfection and beauty? No. Compared to Brother Mo's song, this is what it truly means to have reached the acme of perfection. Only now do I, Lin Qingyin, know what is the true essence of music. And what is the true path of music. After listening to this song, I suddenly feel as if everything I've learnt before is truly not worth a mention at all. To think that I've imagined myself to be the best among all the young musicians in the misty illusory manner. In reality, I actually haven't even come into contact with real music yet. In fact, I hadn't even touched upon its corners. Lin Qingyin said in a dumb manner. Even Zhan Yushu could not help but nod his head lightly in spite of himself. He could also be considered to have studied music rather extensively, and in this moment, he was not willing to speak in contrast to his heart. But in a moment, he came to himself and realized the side on which he stood and instantly shook his head. But as if the shaking of his head had pricked his conscience, he actually switched to nodding again. This song of the Burial of Flowers was an excellent song with no flaws to attack. The melody was beautiful, and something never before heard in this world. That helplessness and sorrowful emotion embodied within the music had caused everyone to feel a wispy sense of loss. And that purity and pridefulness interwoven within the tunes caused them to feel even more heartbroken. After listening to this perfect rendition, everyone cried out together and gave their approval. Even the people on Zhan Qingfeng's side couldn't find any problems with it. Jun Moxie had obtained the victory in an overwhelming manner. This time, nobody dared to mention Heartbreak him anymore. Because the difference between them was like the heavens and the earth, with no way for comparison. Brother Mo, dare I ask, what is the name of that talented girl? Lin Qingyin's voice was humble and he seemed to have a hint of anticipation in his voice. Although Jun Moxie had mentioned that the girl had already passed away several hundred years ago. But after he heard this song of the Burial of Flowers, he felt as if he'd already met this frail and sickly girl. He even felt an impulse to console this pitiful lady who had to live such a cruel life. This is quite a coincidental thing that you asked. Her surname is also Lin, which means that you are of the same line, Brother Lin. Jun Moxie said with a faint smile. Her name is Lin Daiyu. Jun Moxie said with a heartfelt sigh. In this moment, he finally understood one thing. The advantage of a transmigrator was simply too large. Not mentioning the other stuff. As long as one had studied at a primary school on Earth, they would be able to bring at least a portion of thousands of years of history with them to the other world. Especially songs, poems, and other literary works of the ancient grandmasters. That stuff was completely invincible here. So she's also surnamed Lin. What a peerless talent of pure spirit and beauty. Lin Qingyin sighed lightly and said in a wistful manner, Brother Mo, could you make a copy of musical notes of this Song of the Burial of Flowers' Xiao rendition for me? Miao Xiao Miao asked in a soft voice. Of course. To be able to satisfy Miss Miao is a great honor of mine. Jun Moxie agreed immediately. Xiao Miao is filled with gratitude for Brother Mo's gift. Miao Xiao Miao smiled shyly as a warm look flashed past her eyes. In that instant, an intense look of jealousy blazed in Zhan Yushu and Zhan Qingfeng's eyes. The way they looked at Jun Moxie became even more hostile. With young Master Jun's abilities, he had naturally detected those two extremely hostile gazes, and he swiveled his eyes to look in a casual manner. As he met their eyes, he felt a shock in his heart. From the surface, it seemed as if Zhan Yushu was pursuing Miao Xiao Miao and Zhan Qingfeng was only helping his little brother. But why was there such an expression on Zhan Qingfeng's face as well? Could it be that Zhan Qingfeng also had wild intentions for Miao Xiao Miao? The reason he'd approached her previously was not purely for the sake of his brother? If that's really the case, Zhan Yushu might actually still be kept in the dark about the whole matter. Perhaps only Zhan Qingfeng was truly cognizant of the whole matter. In that case, could I possibly use this knowledge to my advantage? If he could leverage this point well, he might be able to turn these two brothers against each other. There were two things that a man can never endure. One was being betrayed by their own brothers. The second was that their woman was being coveted by another. As for Zhan Qingfeng, he seemed to have fulfilled both criteria. If he exposed this little secret, the results would be very interesting to see. Perhaps it could even be more interesting than today's farce. Jun Moxie sneered internally and instantly began making plans in his heart. However, the expression on his face was still completely unchanged. The results of the first match were very obvious. It was a complete victory for the free and natural physique young prodigy Mo. There were no more voices of contention, and no one could oppose the result. If they continued to seek trouble at this point, whoever spoke out would instantly be cursed to death by the others. Although the first match had ended, it was merely the start in the context of this challenge. Immediately following it was the second match. The original plan was to chain all the matches up, not giving Mo Junyi a chance at a breather. But because of a single song of the Burial of Flowers, the entire crowd had become lost in the music, not recovering for a long time. Nobody came out for the second match, resulting in an empty stage. Humans were like this. They would always be filled with jealousy and refuse to recognize others who were simply a little bit better than them. But if the other person was much better than them, they would suddenly be filled with respect and even worship. It was like a household with an annual income of 10,000 yuan compared with a household with 100,000 yuan annual income. The person with 10,000 yuan income will only scoff bitterly and curse that the other person's luck was simply a bit better than them. If it was them who had the same opportunities, they could also achieve the same thing. But if they were asked to compare themselves with Bill Gates, all of them would bow in respect. Because the person they were comparing themselves to was simply a legend. Who would be so dumb as to think they could match up to such a legendary character? And right now, it was the same for Jun Moxie. Before the first match, the great prodigy Mo was only the so-called legendary prodigy. But now, He'd proven himself to be a legitimate legendary prodigy. Thus, everyone's attitude of him had changed. In truth, most of these people had only come here today because they'd received some advantages and promises from the Zhan family. As for people like Lin Qingyin, they had even been directly coerced to come. But before this, these similarly talented youngsters were truly also somewhat unconvinced in their hearts. All of them had come great achievements in various fields, and although they could not be said to have reached the peak of their fields, their reputations had still spread quite widely in the misty illusory manner. Achieving great results in their youth, who would not be arrogant? But the appearance of this free and natural physique youth had directly snatched away the attention of all the seniors and elders of the misty illusory manor. No matter how much greater their achievements was, it was not worth a mention in front of this legendary free and natural physique. The main thing was also that this physique was something that was gained at birth. It had nothing to do with Mo Jun Xie's own hard work. This point made everyone feel even more unconvinced. But after today, after witnessing his song of the burial of flowers, everyone immediately reined in their arrogance. These youths were undoubtedly proud, and they'd also looked forward to getting some benefits out of participating in this event. However, that did not mean that they would go against their conscience. For the other party's musical attainments to reach such a high level, just this point alone was enough to cause the crowd to look at him differently. Moreover, he was the owner of the free and natural physique. Disregarding natural talent, this was still an extraordinary person. Shall I face Brother Mo in the second match? A person finally walked out after some time. The newcomer was a youth with a skinny figure. He looked ordinary and steady, with confidence on his face. It was as if he had everything calmly in his grasp, an absolute self-confidence. His two eyes shone brightly, but this kind of light was not the clarity that came from cultivation. It was instead a natural quick-wittedness and concentration. Although this youth did not seem old, his bearings were steady and firm. With a single look, Jun Moxie could tell that this youth was probably more steadfast and determined than some of those old fellows with a wealth of experience behind them. May I know who this young master is? Jun Moxie looked at him and asked. Brother Mo, this is the youth chess king of our misty illusory manor, Qi Jia. Miao Xiao Miao introduced. Qi Jia learned the way of chess at a very young age. He made his name at the age of 9, and when he was 13, he was already unmatched in the misty illusory manor. Right now, he's not even needed to be present in the yearly chess competition, because everyone else can only fight for the second place. The title of Chess King is something that Qi Jia has held for 12 consecutive years without anyone being able to snatch it away. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 965. Chess move outside the game of chess. So it is Brother Qi. Apologies for any disrespect. Jun Moxie bowed slightly. The art of chess is originally merely a minor and insignificant talent. There is no harm using it for treating the soul. But if it's used for a competition to show who is superior, it is rather unsuitable. Brother Mo moved everyone's souls with a single tune. You're a person of refined temperament. Could you go for a round with me? Winning or losing is unimportant. Just doing your best would suffice. Qi Jia smiled and said. His name was originally Qi Jia 1, but after he became famous, he changed his name to Qi Jia, changing the original character of Jia to Jia 2, suggesting his constant permutability in the game of chess, his hundreds and thousands of twists and tribulations that were impossible to be figured out by others. Of course, this change in the character of his name also revealed his arrogance. Jun Moxie couldn't help but sneer internally. Looks like this fellow is one of their main forces for dealing with me. And this fellow is probably be adept at calculation and has a hypocritical temperament. All of these were conveyed from his one single sentence alone. You claim to say that, if it's used for competition to show who is superior, it is rather unsuitable. Yet you request that I go for a round with you? And even winning or losing is unimportant, so doing my best would suffice. Since it's a battle of chess, if there is no desire to win, then how can victory be determined? Especially in the game of chess, one has to fuss over every minor matter to be able to calculate their position, figure out their advantages and disadvantages and adapt to it. It's considered rather impressive to be capable of being so hypocritical at such a young age. This person is a hypocrite. But this young master has met plenty of hypocrites. Li Yuran's skills, for example, are way higher than yours. And Li Yuran is so much more honest. What is this? That would be natural. Brother Qi is not wrong at all. I deeply feel the same. The art of chess is indeed the deepest form of study, but it is just merely an insignificant talent within a small square. Its name truly follows its merit. Of course, Jun Moxie didn't think this way. The art of chess was not some insignificant talent and was even capable of obtaining national glory in the present days. But he had to continue the conversation like this. Because Jun Moxie felt pissed at the sight of this squinty eyes before him. You want to help the Zhan brothers to defeat me. So just do it openly. Why are you still pretending to be all sanctimonious and spouting so much bullshit? You just want to disgust this young master, don't you? If I don't properly hit you with some blows, wouldn't I be letting all these pretense of yours down? Qi Wanjia. Feck. I'll just let you finish altogether. 3. Let you completely be finished here. To dare to play schemes with this daddy. Just watch if this daddy plays you till your death. However, I am not very well versed in the skills of chess and only learnt it for a couple of months not long ago. But, since Brother Qi says that it's merely some insignificant skills and tricks, then I shall entertain Brother Qi. After all, it's just to treat the self and soul and not about winning or losing. I believe I am still capable of winning, young Master Jun said. Brother Mo sure is humorous. Since Brother Mo also agrees that the art of chess is an insignificant skills, then please don't blame me for not showing any mercy. A cold gleam appeared in Qi Wanjie's eyes. But he still maintained his poise as he said this in reply indifferently. Oh. Not showing any mercy. Brother Qi is a gentleman, an honest person who doesn't do anything in the dark. Just that I have a question in advance. If I blame you for not showing any mercy, then will you show me any mercy? Jun Moxie asked sarcastically. When facing someone like Brother Mo, I believe no one will show mercy. Qi Wanjie was getting impatient. This Mo Junyi is truly too detestable. I was just trying to speak in a humble manner just now. You're now trying to go overboard. Is that so? Brother Qi's words really make me upset. I originally thought that you were the supreme chess champion, so naturally you'd be above others in your behavior. Even if you can't do things open and candidly, it wouldn't be untrustworthy. But I did not imagine that what you said just now was as if you were letting out a fart. Other people who let out a fart will only stink for a while, but you actually even swallowed it right back. I'm truly impressed. This sort of skill is truly number one in the world, as expected of the chess champion. You have a fully justified reputation. Truly. Knowing somebody by their reputation can't compare to meeting them in person. I truly admire and am impressed. I can't compare. Jun Moxie noticed that he had already successfully destroyed his frame of mind. So naturally he'd take the opportunity to continue dealing blows. The frame of mind was the most important in the art of chess. If the mental state was not stable, even the best national player can lose to a child who had just began playing chess. This was nothing too bizarre. Mo Jun Xie. A look of anger appeared across Jun Xie's face. Let's wait and see who will be utterly defeated and destroyed. Utterly defeated and destroyed? That sounds a little serious. I only have one thing to say. Little brother, you're not allowed to cry if you lose. Ah! Jun Moxie said in an extremely serious tone. Although you are still young, but in this sort of occasion, if you cry because you lost, it'll really not look good. Jun Xie's face was turning white, and he scoffed heavily. At this moment, one of his followers behind him had already prepared the chessboard and pieces. He stopped bothering with Jun Moxie and walked over to the chessboard. Clearly he could no longer wait to torture this free and natural physique in a game of chess. I don't care if you have the free and natural physique, but you offend me, I will not leave you with any face. Especially when second young Master Jean promised me a huge mansion, the position of the chess superintendent of the chess institution of the misty illusory manor, and 4 great beauties waiting to be my concubines. All these I must obtain. I want to have it. I want success. So I must step over your body. Get ready to be my stepping stone, legendary prodigy. Jun Moxie may look completely calm, but right now, he was a little nervous. He had only grazed the surface of chess when he was training. Although his power of understanding was not too shabby and his abilities at the game were not weak, it was still far from professional players. With young Master Jun's real standard, in the current world of chess, he was only slightly above average standards. There was no problem in dealing with most people, but it'd be difficult for him to obtain victory in competing with real experts of chess. This achievement was thanks to that old geezer and his death-threatening methods in Jun Moxie's previous life. That old thing has insanely high standards of the so-called qualified assassins, requesting of them to be able to be familiar with mass-oriented skills and sufficiently well-versed in less common knowledge. Only in this way, under any sort of condition and circumstance, they would be able to perfectly conceal themselves and silently get rid of the target. But that sort of expectations is practically beyond what humans are capable of. Because Jun Xie from the previous life also did not manage to complete all this in reality. He could only complete 70% of the training the old geezer had arranged. The old geezer only has one wish to create an ultimate legend in the world of assassins. Even if that legend decides to stop being an assassin someday, aside from putting down his weapons, he could go and become a doctoral advisor to any subject at any university. Anyone who heard of this would understand that this was a completely insane and perverse and terrifying plan. The 4 arts: poetry, wine, tea, the 3 religions and 9 schools, medicine and divination, farmland and water conservancy, the 8 major subjects: physics, chemistry, me. Even now, Jun Moxie got a headache recalling all of it. But after coming to this other world, at the same time as Jun Moxie had this headache, he still had boundless gratitude for the cruel training back then. If not for the old geezer forcing him to learn all this with his life, he definitely wouldn't be able to do so well. Even with the best cheating tool, the Hongjun Pagoda, it wouldn't work. Without the basic foundations, he'd just be blind and confused with the most invincible martial art manuals. At least, right now, he was feeling a little regretful. Why didn't I properly learn chess back then? If I had reached the mid-levels of professional standards, Then there would be no need for me to make hasty last-minute efforts today. The game today seems to be a little difficult. Faced with this seasoned young chess champion of the misty illusory manner, what should I do to defeat him? No matter how bad this person's standards are, even if he is low according to the standards of this world, it'll be considered professional level at the very least. With my own real strength, the chances seem to be really bleak. Jun Moxie suddenly recalled a sentence the old geezer often used to say back then. In chess, there are moves within the game, but there are also moves outside of the game. He couldn't help but feel his heart skip a beat. Looking at Jun Xie, who had already settled down into his seat before the chessboard, Jun Moxie suddenly gave a peculiar grin. Brother Qi, are you prepared? A game of chess is a refined activity of the intellectuals. You must be open-handed in your acts. You are known as the chess champion of the current generation in the misty illusory manner. If you unfortunately lose in the hands of a nobody like me, it'll really be ugly. Ha ha ha. Your legendary reputation will all be going down the drain. I don't need you to worry about it. Jun Xie looked at him darkly. I believe that my reputation is not easily threatened by any random cats or dogs. Is that so? Brother Qi, you sure are confident. Back then, when I was outside playing chess with the Xian continent's chess saint Hua Wuqiu once said a single line that I still remember clearly to this day. What? You've played against Hua Wuqiu? What did he say? Jun Xie's expression turned serious, and a look of nervousness finally appeared on his calm and tranquil face. Hua Wuqiu, the chess saint of his own generation in the Xian continent, had gained his reputation as a youth, upholding it for over 200 years and had never been defeated. If the Nine Nether First Young Master was the legend of Xian skills in the Xian continent, this person was the legend in the art of chess in the Xian continent. As an expert of chess, no matter how arrogant Jun Xie was, he would not dare to talk bad towards this saint of chess. But now that he had heard that this owner of the free and natural physique actually had played against Hua Wuqiu, his heart couldn't help but sink. Could it be that this Mo Junyi is really well versed in the art of chess? Then how good are his skills? Someone who has the right to play against Hua Wuqiu is definitely not to be belittled. At this point in time, Jun Xie completely kept away all his belittlement, and his intention to fight began to rise. His gaze was fixed on young Master Jun. Oh. I said that I once played against Hua Wuqiu. Why did Brother Qi believe it so easily? What if I had intentionally used his name to oppress you? Jun Moxie asked, narrowing his eyes. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 966. Heaven as chessboard. Stars as chess pieces. If he did not say this sentence, although Jun Xie was cautious, he wouldn't help but suspect the authenticity of this. But Jun Moxie had said to so frankly, causing Jun Xie's suspicions to be reduced greatly, and the caution in his heart to increase ninefolds. An ordinary chess player would not dare to casually speak of the name of the grandmaster of the art of chess, just like how a top expert in Xian cultivation did not dare to blaspheme the Nine Nether First Young Master. But Jun Moxie was mentioning Hua Wuqiu so casually right now, so there could only be one reason, that is Jun Moxie was really not bothered by Hua Wuqiu, or at the very least, he didn't view Hua Wuqiu as an existence that he could not surpass. If that were truly the case, what did this suggest? Could it be that Mo Junya's skills at chess were at such a terrifying standard? I believe Brother Mo is not someone that nonsensical. Jun Xie's tone instantly weakened by 3 folds. Brother Qi doesn't have to be concerned. I'm ashamed to be saying this. Back then, I had played 3 rounds against Hua Wuqiu. Ha ha ha. Without a choice. Losing with a difference of a single piece. Hua Wuqiu's chess skills are truly worthy of being number 1 across all times. Truly. No one can compare. I am fascinated in the path of chess and rarely get defeated. But when met with true experts, I still can't avoid defeat. Today, I am fortunate enough to meet the chess champion of the misty illusory manor. So I hope that Brother Qi can defeat me, just like Brother Hua did. Jun Moxie said slowly, in a tone as if he were recalling the past. Jun Xie was speechless. But the look of caution in his eyes got heavier and heavier. He, against Hua Wuqiu, managed to determine a victor after 3 rounds. In other words, amongst the 3 games, he had won once. I may not have met Hua Wuqiu, and never played against him, but I studied all the chess records of matches that Hua Wuqiu had played before. Although it isn't all of it, but at the very least, there are about 80 or 90% of it. Hua Wuqiu's skills are indeed a profound mystery, and his manner of playing chess is majestic and upright. He is definitely not one who avoids dangers and demands for a fluke, and he has great foresight. In his magnanimity, there is no lack of meticulousness. If not for this, how could he create the legendary record of never being defeated? I may be conceited, but I do admit that I am not as good as this person. And this Mo Junyi is actually capable of playing against Hua Wuqiu for 3 rounds, only losing the long match with a difference of a single piece. That meant that his chess skills are rather close to Hua Wuqiu's. Even though there is a difference. But it shouldn't be big. Then doesn't mean that me playing with an expert like this has no chance of victory. Back then, when the game ended, Brother Wuqiu, deeply moved, said. Jun Moxie maintained his smile, addressing that chess saint he had never met before as Brother Wuqiu. The 1,000 years history is often empty. The world from ancient times to now is merely a game of chess. The 1,000 years history is often empty. The world from ancient times to now is merely a game of chess. Jun Xie silently repeated, suddenly feeling sweat trickle down. His gaze began to look flustered. Because he could tell from this simple poetic line, the magnanimity of this chess saint Hua Wuqiu. The art of chess had an inseparable relationship with the breadth of mind of the person himself. If one's breadth of mind was not wide enough, then he would only be focused on the gains and losses in that moment. He would forever be unable to achieve great achievements in the path of chess. But if you only focused on the greater picture and forgot about the momentarily gains and losses, you would forever be unable to obtain victory. Only when both of these were combined perfectly could the person be a top chess player in name and meaning. Jun Xie knew that he was still far from reaching this level. The world from ancient times to now is merely a game of chess. What sort of open-mindedness is this? I admit that I'm nowhere near Senior Hua's breadth of mind. Jun Xie sighed, feeling his iron fortress of confidence unconsciously developing an opening. Through the recount by the other party, it was slowly breaking down. After Brother Wuqiu exclaimed, he suddenly burst out in laughter and said, "Little Mo." This old man suddenly thought of a first line of a couplet. "I've met you today, so I shall test you, how's that?" Jun Moxie noticed the falter in Jun Xie's mental state, secretly rejoicing internally. But he did not show it on his face and calmly continued to chase after this cornered enemy. "May I ask what is that first line of the couplet?" Jun Xie couldn't help but ask. He was not the only one curious. Everyone present perked up their ears. Jun Moxie was one who knew how to tell stories. This story that had never happened before, through his performance, had become one that was vivid, realistic, causing everyone who was present feel the urge to continue listening. Anyone who heard of this would feel that this was something that had truly happened before. Everyone's feeling was the same as Jun Xie, not believing it at first, then skeptical, then suspicious, then to the state of believing it completely. And I had also asked Brother Wu Qiu this same question. What is the first line of the couplet? Jun Moxie revealed a look of admiration. Brother Wu Qiu said, "Heaven as the chessboard, stars as chess pieces. Who is able to play it?" This is the first line of the couplet. After Jun Moxie had said this, the entire place was silent. Everyone had a frown as they dwelled in deep thoughts. Heaven as the chessboard, stars as chess pieces. Who is able to play it? How magnanimous is this line of a couplet? Ah! Jun Xie let out a long sigh as he focused in his thoughts. He had always thought highly of himself, and his goal in life was to overtake Senior Hua Wu Qiu. Now Hua Wu Qiu had come up with a first line of a couplet. He naturally would have to work out the next line that matched it. If he couldn't come up with it, then didn't that mean that he had no hopes of catching up to Hua Wu Qiu in this entire life? Right now, although he was sitting before the chessboard, there was no longer any desire to win or lose in his heart. Or perhaps to say, he had completely forgotten about this match. All his mind was preoccupied about this first line of the couplet. Jun Xie was not like Lin Qingyin. He had his position as the chess champion of the Monarch Jun Xie. Even the powerful Zhan family could not threaten and force him. But he had his weaknesses. Zhan Yushu had given him many things and promised him more, as long as he helped the Zhan family win the free and natural physique. Then, he could gain countless benefits. And that was what he had always dreamt of obtaining. Power, position, beauty, money. As long as he won today, Zhan Yushu would absolutely give it to him. These were things that people could not get even if they work hard for the entire life. Naturally, Jun Xie desired it. But the thing he desired the most was still the highest honor and repute from the art of chess to challenge Hua Wu Qiu and defeat Hua Wu Qiu. This was the highest ambition and ideal he had been chasing after since young. Between these two things, there was no place for them to be compared together. Everyone present was a talent, some in literature and poetry. Even those judges were all furrowing their brows and mumbling to themselves. This was a first line of a couplet that had come from the chess saint. And the open-heartedness hidden in the meaning of this line made those who were listening feel deeply moved. Heaven as the chessboard, stars as chess pieces. Who is able to play it? The first line of a couplet like this, so absolute in its words. Who could be capable of matching it? Jun Xie's mind began to wander, completely engrossed in his thoughts. Unknowingly, a thin layer of sweat had formed on his forehead and his complexion began to turn pale. Amongst all those present here, there was no doubt that he was the one most bothered by this. Because this half of a couplet had come from Hua Wu Qiu. Just at this moment, he only heard Monarch Jun Xie sigh regrettably. It's a pity. Brother Wu Qiu has come up with this first line for me, but even until now, I still haven't been able to think of the next line that follows. AI. This sigh sounded full of disappointment. Jun Xie jolted to his senses. He couldn't suppress a smirk that was appearing on his face. If you're capable of matching it, then will I still be able to shine? If only you can't come up with it. Yet I just managed to. Then it'll prove that I'm stronger than you. It'll prove that I'm on the same level as Hua Wu Qiu and stand above you. Hua Wu Qiu, The chess saint how the rest of the world knows him as. I refuse to accept it. The absolute line that you've come up with. I will match it no matter what. Just like your reputation of the supreme chess saint. One day, sooner or later, it will become mine. It'll belong to Jun Xie. Jun Xie was squeezing all his brain juice thinking of how to come up with a line that matched this first line of the couplet. Just when his brain was about to turn into knots from his thinking, he suddenly heard a paw sound from in front of him. Mo Jun Xie asked. Brother Qi, when are you planning to make me wait until? When will this game of chess begin? Jun Xie opened his eyes in a daze, only realizing that he was sitting before a chessboard. And the prodigy with the free and natural physique was seated opposite him, looking at him with a sharp look in his eyes. He was holding onto a bunch of chess pieces in his hands, clearly waiting for Jun Xie to start. Do what? Jun Xie asked in a daze. He had not completely snapped out of the thoughts of the couplet yet. Determine who to go first. Don't tell me you don't even know this? Jun Moxie was cackling away inwardly. Looks like this fellow's mind has wandered off already. Who goes first? Oh, yes. Who gets to go first? Jun Xie subconsciously picked up a chess piece from the container and placed it on the chessboard. Jun Moxie opened up his hand, and the chess pieces scattered onto the chessboard. 1 pair, 2 pair, 3 pairs. Just nice. There are 6. Looks like I've set up the game. Brother Qi, I've gone easy already. Oh. Jun Xie was still deep in his thoughts. Heaven as the chessboard. Stars as chess pieces. Who is able to play it? Who is able to play it? A line that was impossible to be matched. So how could a correct second line be produced? And what sort item would be able to match the beauty of the heavens and stars? The stars are the chess pieces. The heaven is the board. How was it to be rhymed? Another paw sound rang out. And when he looked over, there was one more black piece on the chessboard, landing on the top right star point. The opponent had struck. Jun Xie suddenly regained a moment of clarity in his mind, and without any hesitation, he matched a piece at the bottom left corner. Pa! Another black chess piece landed on the top left star point. What sort of beginning is this? Jun Xie had become famous through chess, but he had never met with such an odd way of opening a game. This position was a little far to be said to be keeping to the corner, calling it surrounding the center. It's not quite, if it's occupying the sides, it still doesn't make sense. In the art of chess, there was a saying of, the corners are gold, the sides are silver, and the center is grass. Yet the opponent's current tactics at placing his pieces was beyond all of Jun Xie's prior knowledge and comprehension. What he didn't know was that it was the one thing he had never seen it before. But placing the pieces at the star points was the best method that had been invented after hundreds of years for watching from the corners, aiming for the sides and dominating the center. Please subscribe to this channel, so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 967. Battle of Chess. Battle of Mind. Jun Xie spent a long time looking at it, but he still couldn't figure it out. After all, the positions of these chess pieces were poles apart from whatever he knew. But he was still ultimately a chess champion of his generation, so naturally, he was well aware of the situation. Although he didn't understand the opponent's intentions, but he could sense that the other party's 2 distant chess pieces at the top were showing faint signs of possible potential. In an exchange between experts, the smallest difference could make a huge difference. Jun Xie didn't dare to take any chances. He testingly placed a chess piece between the two chess pieces Jun Moxie had placed with the intention to impose a threat on both sides, or at the very least, sever the connection between them. He waited for Jun Moxie's next move. But what he didn't expect was for the other party to completely ignore it, landing another chess piece at the bottom right star point. Jun Xie was even more hesitant now. The opponent's opening of the game was too peculiar, but it seemed to encompass logic. As expected of a chess expert who had played against Hua Wuqiu, he was even more on alert now. All the more he carefully played against his opponent. In a blink of an eye, after taking turns, over 10 chess pieces had been placed already. The black and white on the chessboard were in a picturesque disorder, and both parties were more or less evenly matched. Jun Moxie's mind moved quickly, and he was even faster in landing his pieces. With every piece placed, it was like the wind and rain crossing with lightning and thunder. It was too much for Jun Xie's eyes to take in, and he felt like the other party's speed was becoming faster and faster, as if all his counter moves were expected by the opponent. For him to be able to put out his moves without any hesitation. Young Master Jun's powerful speed spurred Jun Xie, who was unwilling to fall behind, to also increase his speed. Jun Moxie sighed internally. Although the other party was not completely focused, his fundamental skills were not for show. Reaching with his instincts alone and under the condition of being completely unfamiliar with the modern way of playing I am using, he is actually able to keep the battle evenly matched, and even vaguely hint at a deep and tenacious strength at striking back. But the real competition is not here yet. The moves within the game, he had already brought out to their limit already. There was no more space for any progress. But right now, the one that had the decisive effect was the move outside of the game. And until this point in time, the effects of moves he had employed outside the game had been ideal. Jun Xie was good at chess, but his weakness was still within Jun Moxie's hands. With the constant sound of chess pieces landing, all the audience also began to get anxious. The match between these two people from the surface was vastly different from what everyone had imagined. Everyone had predicted that Jun Xie would definitely lose this round. But right now, the situation was that this prodigy with the free and natural physique had dominated the absolute initiative just like in the previous round. Every single move was as powerful as a thunderbolt, and his amazing moves were breeding like flies, beyond the common ways of chess, but extremely exquisite and boundlessly clever. In contrast, the misty illusory manners young chess champion seemed to be trembling in fear, as if he were walking on thin ice, invariably coping with the situation. Although they seemed to be evenly matched as of now, no one was optimistic for Jun Xie. Towards this extremely unexpected situation, everyone was really surprised. Was there really a prodigy in the world that was talented and well-versed in everything? Could the free and natural physique really be so perverse to such a state? In sight of the treacherous match before his eyes, Jun Xie began to take it seriously. He had been responding with counters, but never initiated any attacks. This made him feel very aggravated. And it was this aggravation that caused him to suddenly snap back to his senses. Looking at the opponent's impending success, Jun Xie muttered to himself for a while before decisively placing his piece in the empty space on the right side of the opponent, instead of the bottom left corner. This move came out of nowhere, and it looked like an irrational move, but upon careful analysis, it was a move to attack the enemy and rescue himself. Although he had completely sacrificed his bottom left corner, but the other party still has 3 moves of cornering him which could put him in control of the entire match. But if he placed his chess piece in this territory, the originally great setup would be thoroughly ruined by himself. Whatever the choice, It was a difficult decision. The moment this piece landed, the tables immediately turned. All those in the audience who understood the game let out a genuine exclaim of praise. Jun Moxie laughed coldly internally. Finally snapped back to your senses? But it's a little too late for you to wake up now. The black pieces continued to land mercilessly, completely ignoring that left bottom corner that allowed him to win the game in 3 moves. And it did not fall into the space to form a line as it should have. Instead, it cut right into the group of white pieces. It forcefully attacked with the intention of invading the entire group. If Jun Xie continued to attack the opponent's space on the site, his territory which he was relying on as his base was in danger of being completely wiped out. But if he were to just give up like this and focus on protecting his territory from being invaded, then the opponent could harass his territory almost 6 times. And the moment he got careless, the consequences would be dire. After all, the opponent had the upper hand of making the first move. Jun Xie's body jolted as he picked up another chess piece. But he did not put it down for a long time. Right now, the match was halfway through. Every single piece had great importance. If there was a miscalculation in any single move, it would create a situation that was beyond redemption. Right now, Jun Xie felt miserable. He had never imagined that he would meet such a relentless and pestering opponent in the match today. His intentions are obvious. This little master would rather sacrifice if it means I can bite a piece of flesh from you. You hit my eyes and I'll strangle your throat. You attack my legs and I'll stab you right through your heart. He just did whatever he wanted to recklessly, be it reasonable or unreasonable. Fearless. All of Jun Xie's moves were in vain due to the opponent having the absolute initiative right from the beginning. No matter how he tried to test the opponent out in his passive stage, the opponent had a measure for measure, paying no heed to him. If you play harsh, then I shall also play lethal. It was a scholar meeting a soldier. No reason could not be spoken clearly. A look of resolution appeared in Jun Xie's eyes, turning red. The only thing he could do now was to throw his ultimate move and mess up the entire game. Then, with his meticulous calculation, slowly turn the tables around. If he didn't take this risk, there was no chance of him obtaining victory. When he had thought to this point, he no longer hesitated, raising his chess piece. Ha! Everyone fell into a state of shock. Jun Xie's piece also invaded into Jun Moxie's territory. Right now, both parties were like 2 gamblers who had lost until their eyes were red. Without a single cent to their name, they continued to slaughter away at each other with knife and sword. You cut me when I'm not guarding, then I'll stab you back similarly. We'll see who can last till the end. Jun Moxie frowned, lifting his face and letting out a long sigh. He had always been focused on the game, not paying attention to the surroundings. But now, he suddenly raised his head. Jun Xie couldn't help but also followed suit to look at him, only to see Jun Moxie with a face full of reminiscence. He couldn't help but feel a pang of shock. He is not focused on the game at a time like this? Then what is he thinking about right now? What can be even more important than the outcome of the match right now? As he was speculating, he only heard Jun Moxie sigh. Life is truly strange. To think that 2 games are so similar. Back then, I also played in this manner. Brother Wu Qiu is a master of chess. Every single move was steady and strikes hard. There was not the slightest urgency, definitely not taking any risks for the chance at a fluke. But he still ultimately turned all of my attacks into nothing. Today, with a different opponent, it is full of killing intent, and this state of mind is completely different. At least it didn't go to the situation which I didn't hope to see. Fine. Let's see who is the victor. Chi Jie's heart trembled. Looks like I'm really not as good as Hua Wuqiu. He can confront the match peacefully and calmly. But I'm playing in such a manner of life and death. Just this attitude alone, I am already beneath him. He was just about to ask. But he suddenly heard Mo Junyi letting another long sigh and muttering softly. Heaven as the chessboard. Stars as chess pieces. Who is able to play it? Using the heaven as the chessboard. And the stars as chess pieces. The scattered stars in the sky as chess pieces on a board. It is truly a good couplet. Whoever can match this first line. This achievement alone is not inferior to chess saint Hua Wuqiu. But, who could be capable of matching an unmatchable line like this? Chi Jie only felt a heavy blow in his heart. As if someone had knocked on his heart heavily with a hammer. His mental state that had regained a state of clarity returned back to a state of chaos. I haven't come up with a line that matches that first half of a couplet. And now, my chess skills are far from Hua Wuqiu's. This Mo Junyi is clearly saying that I'm not as good as Hua Wuqiu with his tone full of condescendence. It's clear that he is saying that I'm not as good as him. But his chess skills are obviously not that good. Since his skills aren't that good, then why is it that during the whole time I've been playing against him, I have always been in the disadvantageous position? Could it be that I had already fallen into his setups and calculations right from the beginning of the match? He actually just wants to see how I would play in this state, so he dragged it out till now? Could it be that this person is truly so good? Could it be that I'm really incomparable to him? This sudden thought that had risen could no longer be suppressed. Chi Jie looked helplessly at the chessboard, only feeling that he had no chance of victory. All the arrogance and pride he had for such a long time had instantly been crushed. Just at this moment, another sound of pa. Jun Moxie landed another piece. It was another attack. And in Chi Jie's territory, preventing him from breaking through. Chi Jie heard this crisp sound. But his mental state was faltering. It sounded like it was far, far away. Thousands and hundreds of years ago. He felt like he was in a wrong time and place and felt like everything was not real. What are you thinking about? Can you hurry up? Are you going to win or lose? Hurry up and decide. What meaning is there dragging it out like this? It's just a game of chess. Not a woman giving birth. Seriously, this is intolerable. Wishy-washy like a woman. How did you even get your reputation as the chess champion? Jun Moxie ruthlessly berated. Chi Jie's heart skipped again, as if he were suddenly rudely awakened from a dream by someone. When he raised his head again, looking at Jun Moxie, the look in his eyes was already full of loss and fear. Looking at the current situation on the chessboard, he only felt like he was in a treacherous state. As long as the opponent randomly decided to take in breath, he had completely no way out. Upon thinking until he suddenly felt that the opponent was extremely magnanimous, not mercilessly killing him off, giving him the chance of retaining his image. Everything was because he was untactful and stalling for time only. His state of mind had been completely wrecked. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 968. Double Act. Right now, Chi Jie was not only incapable of playing against Jun Moxie. Against any chess player in the misty illusory manner, Chi Jie would still be doomed to lose. He lowered his head, looking at the chess pieces that were placed wrongly on the chessboard. In a moment, he felt hope turn into dust. He pushed the chessboard away, lowering his head even more. In a tone as if he were choking back his tears, he said, "I admit defeat." This sentence left everyone utterly shocked. From the start of the game, they'd watched Jun Moxie corner Qi Wanjie. Qi Wanjie had always been coping with his attacks, with no ability to counterattack back. Until now, the game was halfway through. Both parties had already unleashed their ultimate moves. With this, there could only be one winner now. Life and death, victory or success would be determined soon. But Qi Wanjie surrendered at a moment like this. Carefully looking at the situation on the chessboard, the black pieces had indeed occupied a significant advantage and dominated all the attacks while the white pieces had been on the defense. Its foundations were significant and had a small chance of obtaining victory. But if he continued to fend, there was still room for him to wait till an opportunity to counterattack. It was not entirely impossible for him to turn things around. But at a time like this, Qi Wanjie had already calculated all the moves needed till the end of the game. So he requested to surrender in advance. Qi Wanjie looked up in a daze, his eyes lifeless. He said, "I am indeed not his match. This match shouldn't have started in the first place because I had already lost right before it started. Playing chess with the intention of gaining benefits is the taboo of all chess players. How could my game be stable when my mental state is not? Brother Mo is truly highly skilled. I willingly admit my defeat. I am sincerely convinced to concede." Jun Moxie lightly heaved a sigh of relief. This victory in this round was really not easy. The mental strain was greater than a huge battle. However, everything was within his expectations. From the moment Jun Moxie began to tell the story, Qi Wanjie did not interrupt him. From that moment, the outcome was already decided. But he still continued to struggle and made it to midpoint with his solid foundation and tenacious battle strategies. Jun Moxie intentionally mentioned the first line of the couplet, but admitted that he was unable to come up with the second line. This was the real emotional devil he had planted in Qi Wanjie's heart. From the moment Qi Wanjie appeared, Jun Moxie had clearly determined his personality and came up with a suitable method to deal with him. This person was greedy for fame. And a hypocrite. With a personality like this, he cared greatly about gains and losses. Qi Wanjie was indeed a talent and stood at the peak with his chess skills, enjoying success as a youth. Naturally, it was inevitable for him to be arrogant and haughty. This was a normal ailment of youths, completely understandable. But it had also created his current personality of viewing himself highly. In this world, if there was one person who Qi Wanjie genuinely admired, then there was only chess saint Hua Wuqiu. Other people, even if it was the 9-nether first young master, would not necessarily move him. Because Qi Wanjie didn't dabble in xian cultivation. So although Jun Moxie only knew the name of a chess saint, he still came up with an exciting story with it, using the reputation of Hua Wuqiu's art of chess to suppress this young chess champion of the misty illusory manner. This was only the first step of the plan. The moment Qi Wanjie's arrogance was successfully oppressed, Jun Moxie let him realize the disparity between him and the chess saint. He also made use of the opportunity to mention that he had once played against the chess saint, and that his skills were on the same level, naturally, dealing another blow to his confidence. Afterwards, bringing up that couplet at suitable timing, suddenly opening the game when Qi Wanjie was wholeheartedly focused on how to match the next line of the couplet. At that time, Qi Wanjie was already sitting opposite the chessboard. It didn't look sudden in the eyes of outsiders, but to Qi Wanjie himself, it was completely unexpected. His mind had already wandered off elsewhere, but he was suddenly called back. Then, he was tossed into an intense match and had to deal with bizarre moves that he had never seen before. With a mental state like this, how could he not lose? When the match was at its most intense point, where Jun Xie's mental state was like a taut bowstring, on the verge of firing, Jun Moxie suddenly brought up the couplet again. Although he was muttering to himself, Jun Xie was extremely bothered about this. Thus, that casual lament turned into the straw that broke Jun Xie completely, crushing him. From the moment they met, Jun Moxie had been setting traps step by step, slowly making Jun Xie walk right into them, until he fell into a state beyond redemption. Jun Moxie's chess skills were definitely not as good at Jun Xie, but young Master Jun's skills and knowledge of the game had a significant impact. Because in the whole process of officially playing against each other, Jun Xie would be skeptical that Jun Moxie was capable of almost winning chess Saint Hua Wu Qiu even if young Master Jun used methods from 5,000 years in the future. Coupled with his layers of setups, no one would be able to resist it. Even if Jun Xie was lucky enough to resist against this emotional devil, Jun Moxie still had a triumph card. Young Master Jun's unique psychological manipulation was capable of controlling people with no mental training like Jun Xie to do whatever he wanted, with not the tiniest bit of resistance. Although this method left traces and could be easily discovered by Xian experts present, there was no problem in obtaining victory with it. The second round. Mo Jun Xie's victory. After Miao Xiao Miao solemnly announced this outcome, everyone fell into a state of silence. The first and second rounds were what the Zhan family had the most confidence in winning. But under the prowess of the enemy, they had lost both. What else should they compete in next? Some people who wanted to contest in poetry immediately retreated after hearing Jun Moxie unintentionally recited that untitled and "it was hard to meet you" and then bid farewell. Which one of them was confident enough to come up with such rapturous quatrains that nibble away at the bones? If they had stepped out to compete, and Jun Moxie simply said, "You just have to come up with one that is similar to the one I just recited, then it'll count as your victory," that'd really be embarrassing. Not only were they asking for humiliation, they'd really be unable to show their faces. Miao Xiao Miao looked at Jun Moxie happily. Right now, she didn't worry as much as she had before. She only felt that this free and natural physique really matched her tastes. Recalling that line of "life is long in sadness as water keeps flowing east," and that "it was hard to meet you and then bid farewell," and that "burial of flowers and its unaffected yet deep helpless love." Miao Xiao Miao's heart was wavering. And to her surprise, she couldn't control herself. At this moment, no one had noticed that the young chess champion had already snuck away from his seat, as if that young chess champion who shocked the world with his chess ability was no longer worth mentioning anymore. Seeing that the third match had yet to begin, but it was already in a stage of awkward silence, Zhan Qingfeng and Zhan Yushu exchanged glances, feeling extremely anxious. Both brothers felt that if the two of them were to compete with him, they'd feel afraid. This fellow was too sick in the head. As if there was nothing he was not proficient in. What sort of person is this? Talk about you having the free and natural physique that is rarely seen in all of history. Why didn't you treasure it and cultivate Xian's skills properly? Putting so much effort on all these useless external learning. Aside from being excellent at music and chess, even half a poem of yours is enough to scare everyone off from stepping out to compete with you. Are you even still human? Ah. Looking at the people packing up the chess equipment, a light bulb went off in Zhan Yushu's head. He let out a long sigh and said, "The chess saint of Xian continent, Hua Wu Qiu. Legends have it that this person has never miscalculated any of his matches. And everything he does is extremely orderly and full of utmost self-discipline. Amongst those with famous reputations, it is really rare to find one that is like this. Today, upon hearing Brother Mo's recount, I am really full of admiration to this chess saint. Hua Wu Kuo. Truly as expected of Hua Wu Kuo. Truly worthy of the chess saint Ah. This fellow began to embark on his own soliloquy with exaggerated emotions like women in her private room. Jun Moxie didn't bother to respond to it, because he knew that Jun Xie was waiting for him to respond and match his tune. But why would young Master Jun be willing to give him this opportunity? I just want to watch you go on your monodrama. Watch what you are trying to do. Indeed, the chess saint's reputation is well known in the world. As expected of an expert of his generation, Since no one responded, Jun Xie was instantly put in a spot. Not knowing what his younger brother was up to and left without a better choice, Zhang Qingfeng could only force himself to stand up and embark on this double act with his younger brother. Indeed, I had originally wanted to compete against brother in literature. I had even thought of the topic. But now, younger brother, I have changed my mind. Jun Xie said with a smile, facing Zhang Qingfeng. No one bothered about him, so these two brothers could only continue with their act. Although both of them were adorning warm and genial smiles, they were feeling extremely awkward internally, as if the two of them were monkeys performing on stage. Oh. Xie, what did you change your mind about? After a while, no one asked, so Zhang Qingfeng could only continue to do it himself. He had already cursed all those followers and all 18 generations of their ancestors internally. Why are these servants so incompetent at noticing signs? I'll break all their legs when we return immediately and toss all of them out. Yes. Since we've just heard Chess Saint Wu Kuo's poems, if we still insist on competing about some poetry, isn't it too cliché? Then I remembered the story Brother Mo had just shared and I thought of a marvelous idea. Jun Xie said shamelessly with a wide smile. Oh. Could there be such a thing? Hurry up and tell. Xie, what is this marvelous idea you have? Seeing that no one was supporting their act, Zhang Qingfeng just got into the role. Feck it. I'll just be thick-skinned. Who dares to comment about me? What these two brothers did not know was that it was not that their underlings who did not know how to notice signs and not that they did not wish to speak. But it was young Master Jun who wanted to see these two brothers acted, so he controlled all of them using his psychological manipulation. Right now, it was not because they did not want to talk. It was difficult for them to even breathe. But everyone couldn't understand. Why is it that I cannot speak? Right now, even a single line of, indeed, would instantly gain them the favor of the Zhan brothers, But they just couldn't open their mouths. It's really bewildering, Please subscribe to this channel, so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 969. Who is getting exactly what he wants? Brother Mo had said earlier that Chess Saint had presented him with the first line of a couplet during their match. Today, since we do not have any better topics, why don't we borrow this line and compete with Brother Mo? If Brother Mo is able to come up with a matching line on the spot, this round shall be our loss. Wouldn't that be clean and nimble? Jun Xie said. Xie, this idea of yours is too marvelous. Zhang Qingfeng nodded his head gently. Let's do it this way. These two brothers echoed each other. Even though no one helped respond to them, in their own little act, they had decided on the third topic. Miao xiao miao. Jun Moxie. And all the audience present felt their jaws hanging. This is too despicable, isn't it? To be so shameless like this. This was no longer a realm, it was a complete domain. Everyone said that he did not manage to match it. And this first line had come from the person himself. But right now, you two are actually using it to make things difficult for him? This is too crafty. Ah! How can this be accepted? Miao Xiao Miao's face turned red from anger. This first line had come from Brother Mo. If he uses this to test you, then it is still acceptable. But today, you guys use it to compete with him instead. Zhan Yushu, do you still know how to write the word shameless? Little sister Xiao Miao is too harsh in your words. This is the question that the chess saint had given Brother Mo. We are only trying to accomplish his wishes and hope that Brother Mo is able to match it soon. Using it as test is merely giving Brother Mo a greater motivation. And I believe Brother Mo is able to understand the good intentions of us brothers. Zhan Qingfeng said with a smile. Haha. In this way. Aren't you guys doing a good deed? Should Chess Saint Hua Wu Kuo or Brother Mo be grateful to both of you? This is preposterous. Miao Xiao Miao scoffed from anger. That would be unnecessary. We do not care if he is grateful or not. As long as Brother Mo is able to come up with the next line, the chess saint will have his wishes fulfilled. Even if we were to lose another round, there is nothing wrong about it. Zhan Yushu chuckled, replying shamelessly. I've really broadened my horizons seeing someone who is capable of being as shameless as you two. Truly, the more despicable a person, the more invincible he is. Miao Xiao Miao said disdainfully. The mighty reputation of the Zhan family of the Misty Illusory Manor is going to spread far and wide in the whole of Misty Illusory Manor. Truly worthy of celebration. Just when Zhan Yushu brought up this method of competition, Jun Moxie practically burst out laughing. Feck. You guys are so gullible. I said I didn't manage to come up with a line that matches and you really believed it? This first line of the couplet doesn't look fake upon first glance. But the 5,000 years of Chinese history has countless of talents. Even this couplet, with the first line, it doesn't take long for the second line to be created. There is no need to rush. As long as the crux is figured out, it is not difficult to match it. You two idiots. Two idiots who thought you got what you want. The shamelessness of you two honorable brothers can really be said to have reached an exquisite realm. Jun Moxie clicked his tongue. To use the past I've mentioned to test this prodigy. Both of your quick-wittedness is truly impressive. Ah. This prodigy cannot help but want to write a word of convinced. Ah. I'm truly convinced and full of admiration. Zhan Yushu's face flushed red. He said in a rude and unreasonable manner. The third round, we just want to compete matching the couplet. If you are able to match the first line of the couplet we had given, then it's your victory. Otherwise, you lose. It's just that simple. Listen up. The first line we are giving you is, heaven as the chessboard. Stars as chess pieces. Who is able to play it? Great prodigy Mo. Please come up with a matching line. Nonsense. I had already said earlier. When Hua Wu Kuo presented this line, I was not able to come up with a second line that matches. Today, you just purposely used this to make things difficult. What are your intentions? Besides, since when did the ownership of this first line become yours? I say, can the Zhan family still get any more shameless? Do you still have any dignity of an influential family? Jun Moxie chided, pretending to be furious. Why? Is great prodigy Mo scared? Looking at this free and natural physique suddenly losing his calm appearance, Zhan Yushu couldn't help but laugh at his misery. Thank goodness you gave me a good topic. How can you quickly come up with a good match to this excellent and absolute line? Especially when he admits himself that he is unable to come up with a second line. It is truly the best method to making things difficult. Otherwise, I really don't know of anyone else who can baffle you. This time, it is you who lifted up the rock to slam it on your own feet, shattering it completely. This sort of feeling is truly too exhilarating. I refuse to accept this method of competition, Jun Moxie said, as if he were extremely upset. You are just making trouble without reason. Then does this mean great prodigy Mo is ready to admit defeat? Zhan Qingfeng asked eerily. Ridiculous. How can I admit defeat? How can I lose? Jun Moxie put on an expression as if he were pretending to be strong to hide his weakness. I just need time to think. Then you can slowly think. As long as you come up with it today. We are in no rush. Otherwise, some people might say that we are being bullies. You have plenty of time. Zhan Yushu was extremely pleased. You have already thought of this couplet for several years without managing to match it. How could you do it in half a day? Both parties remained silent. But Jun Moxie suddenly piped up again. Unfortunately, I still find it too unfair. You guys used my topic to make things difficult for me. This is such a ridiculous thing. Jun Moxie frowned. Besides, there is no benefit. So who is going to bet with you? This is a bonus. May I ask what great prodigy Mo desires then? Zhan Yushu chuckled coldly. You can come up with any requests, as long as you are able to come up with the second line of the couplet. There is no problem at all. Isn't he just trying to put on a strong front? Clearly he is feeling hopeless about coming up with the second line of the couplet and is refusing to acknowledge that he lost shamelessly. But speaking of acting shamelessly, we are the experts of it, so you have no chance of slipping out of this one. We will counter whatever you say. Since you will definitely not be able to come up with the line, what harm is there in promising as many requests as you raise? Can I really make the requests? Then that's great. Actually, my requests are also very simple, and I believe both of you brothers are capable of easily accomplishing it. I just want to know how you guys controlled Lin Qingyin to be able to make such a noble and virtuous elegant scholar compete in your stead. And Qi Wanjia, what benefits did you give him? If I am able to come up with the next line, I want you to spill all of it over here, in front of everyone. And you must not hide a single bit of the truth. Of course, you must make a blood oath that swears the authenticity of your words. There is no need to trouble thinking about the conditions of the oath. We'll just go with the ones we made earlier. Jun Moxie chuckled, really giving the two Zhan brothers a simple request that they were destined to be unable to accept. Jun Moxie did not intend to bother them about this matter. His goal for this trip was only for the 7-color holy tree. No matter how ambitious the Zhan family was, it had nothing to do with him. No matter how big the Zhan family was, they would not be able to infiltrate Tianfa forest. Although the Zhan family was practically able to hide the truth from the masses in the misty illusory manner, in Jun Moxie's eyes, it was insignificant. The internal disorder of the misty illusory manner had nothing to do with him. In fact, it was better that the misty illusory manner was in a mess. The messier it gets, the less time you have to come and interfere with the matters in the Xian continent. It's okay if all of you die too. But with every single step he took to this point, the Zhan family's constant shameless and overbearing ways had really pissed Jun Moxie off. And he just couldn't directly reveal his true strength. Even if he could, with the current acts of the brothers of the Zhan family, it was merely acts of their own accord and may not necessarily be tied to the entire Zhan family. it was still not to the point of him being so furious as to drench the entire place in blood. Secondly, he needed to empathize with Miao Xiao Miao. Since their encounter, this woman who wore a veil had been helping him the whole time, constantly having his back. If not for her presence today, even this so-called fairness and justice today would have been non-existent. Miao Xiao Miao, a girl who was neither a relative nor friend, in such a temporary exchange, was willing to sacrifice her face in public to do all this for him. How could Jun Moxie not be moved? Right now, the Miao family was in charge of the misty illusory manor. If the Zhan family had any ambitious plans, their first target would be the Miao family. Only by overthrowing the Miao family could the Zhan family can step up. Jun Moxie only felt that he had accepted all of Miao Xiao Miao's help. If he still pretended to be nonchalant about the Zhan family's schemes, he couldn't accept it. It really went against his beliefs of acting on his own whim with a clear conscience. There was no suitable excuse. Yet this Zhan Yushu just happened to offer him the chance to make any request. So naturally, he had to make good use of this opportunity. This was also one of the main reasons why young Master Jun was pretending and acting like a fool. In fact, young Master Jun did not really have high hopes that the Zhan brothers would explicitly admit to all their dirty deeds. What Jun Moxie wanted was their agreement only. As long as he won this round, the outcome would not change whether the Zhan brothers spilled all their secret, underhanded methods. Because as long as it was combined with the matter today, with Miao Xiao Miao bringing it back and mentioning it, it would definitely raise the utmost attention on the Zhan family by the higher-ups of the Miao family. When that happened, it would be difficult for the Zhan family to continue advancing with their schemes and plans as silently and sneakily as before. And they were all a bunch of old and highly regarded old men. Which one of them had lived in vain? And which one of them would be easy to deal with? Every single one of those old men had grown and developed amidst schemes and conspiracies. So Jun Moxie brought up this request that seemed to have nothing to do with himself, but had great importance between the Zhan family and the Miao family. Zhan Qingfeng and Zhan Yushu both froze. Why did he ask for this? What did he discover? Or is he intentionally making things difficult to avoid this topic? What significance is there in making such a request? Even if you manage to come up with a second line that matches by fluke. As long as we both deny that we did not threaten or bribe those two people, what can you do about me? Or rather, is there anything odd hidden within? Right now, the only fatal point is the blood oath. Are we really supposed to swear it again? Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 970. Let the land be the pipa and the path be the string. Victory. Zhan Yushu looked at Jun Moxie with suspicion before he sneered. Mo Junyi, are you trying to avoid producing the second verse of the couplet by talking about the nonsensical and non-existent conspiracies? Are you trying to frame our family? Jun Moxie snorted. Frame you? For what? If I am to accept your conditions, then you should accept mine. Just say whether you can do it or not. Very simple. It's just a yes or a no. The Zhan brothers looked at each other. Zhan Yushu whispered, Brother, what do you think? His condition seems easy to meet and has nothing to do with him, but it will badly damage our family's reputation. If he really wins the bet and we have to say what we have done, the future of those who we ask to come and contest for us will be ruined. No one will want to work for a master that will give them up. So it will become more difficult for our family to find talents in the future. Zhan Qingfeng couldn't decide. That's also my concern, But what if Mo Jun Xie actually can't produce the second half and he is just trying to force us to forfeit this round? I feel this is the only chance we can possibly secure a victory. If we don't grab this opportunity and lose all the subsequent rounds, our family's reputation won't end up any better. Zhan Yushu was very concerned. Suddenly, Zhan Qingfeng seemed to have made a resolution. Yushu, we have to accept his conditions. If he really ends up able to compose the other half, someone will have to make the sacrifice. Yushu, you are younger and have a very bright future. So I will claim all the responsibility if the worst happens. I will say that it has nothing to do with you and the entire family. I believe this is the best way. Brother, what are you talking about? I am the one who operated the whole thing. How can I let you bear the consequences all alone? Zhan Yushu was still young and naive. Hearing that his brother suddenly became so selfless, he felt a rush of warmth up his chest and couldn't help say, even if someone has to bear it alone, it should be me. That works as well. Zhan Qingfeng only hesitated shortly before he agreed. Zhan Qingfeng sighed and said, Brother, I'm so sorry that you will have to go through this. But I also trust your judgment. Mo Jun Xie mostly likely can't compose the second half. He couldn't do it for many years. So how can he suddenly come up with something in a few hours now? By now, Zhan Yushu really regretted saying what he just said. How could he imagine that his brother would quickly push all the responsibility to him with so little hesitation? Now he felt as if he had just jumped into a trap dug by his brother and was fed a dead rat that he couldn't spit out. Was this man in front of him the same person as his beloved and respected brother? Mo Jun Xie, I accept it. Zhan Qingfeng said as he smirked at Jun Moxie. Now it's time for you to showcase your unparalleled literary talent. It surprised Jun Moxie. What? You even dare to accept such dangerous conditions? Are you not afraid that your family's reputation will be ruined? If it can give us a chance to witness your failure, I think it's worth it. Mo Jun Xie, there's no use delaying further. Give us your second verse now. Jun Moxie looked as if he were stuck in a bad situation. He rubbed his head and asked, What's the first verse again? He's doomed. The two brothers were now more certain and couldn't help grinning triumphantly. The heavens is chessboard. The stars are the pieces. Who can play? Zhan Yushu immediately forgot about what his brother had just done to him. He recited the verse with a lot of rhythm. The heavens is chessboard. The stars are the pieces. Who can play? As he walked in circles, Jun Moxie frowned harder and his face appeared darker. Miao Xiao Miao immediately felt tensed up. You better get it right, if not, all your previous efforts will be wasted and the consequences will be unimaginable. Everyone around looked at the young man with the free and natural physique with sympathy. He was such a talented young man, unparalleled for at least 10,000 years. But now he had just sabotaged himself with a story he told. What a pity. Jun Moxie continued to pace back and forth before he finally stopped in his tracks. He looked up at the skies as he pondered harder before finally shaking his head and muttered, No, no. After that, he continued his pace again. The grins on Zhan Qingfeng and Zhan Yushu's faces were getting wider. It was at the brink of breaking into a full-fledged laughter. They eyed Jun Moxie as if he were their prey that had fallen into their trap. All of a sudden. Yes. I've got it. Jun Moxie exclaimed. He exaggeratedly wiped cold sweat from his forehead. It almost drove me crazy. But now I finally came up with a good one. It's not so difficult after all when I realized what was the key. What a pity I didn't came up with it last time. You did? quickly say. I'm sure you know that there are many rules to composing a couplet. If all the words don't match nicely, it won't count. Zhan Qingfeng reminded him, trying to make him more stressed. Of course. It is the most important thing in composing couplets. The heaven matches the earth. Rain matches wind and the land matches the sky. Now, here you go. Jun Moxie emphasized every single word so it could be heard correctly. Let the land be the pipa and the path be the string. Who dares to play? Hong. It was the noise from the ignited crowd. What a beautiful and amazing match. The sky matches the land. The chessboard matches the pipa. The stars matches the path. Who can play matches who dares to play. Every word matched seamlessly. Both verses even conveyed the same arrogance. If there was any flaw in this couplet, no couplet in this world could be called flawless. Now, everyone looked at Mo Junyi with amusement. How can anyone be so talented in all aspects? There was also a mixture of excitement, gratefulness, and surprise in Miao Xiao Miao's beautiful eyes. It rendered her speechless. He really did it? Am I dreaming? How can he be so good? Wah! Unbelievable. Endless admiration was brewing in her heart. This couplet has indeed puzzled me for many years. But how surprising. Under the pressure today, it just occurred to me. Honestly, I should actually thank the two of you, ha ha ha. How fortunate I am. Jun Moxie's words sounded especially strange to everyone. It was like he was ridiculing the Zhan brothers. But it was too sincere. How strange and indescribable. The triumphant grin vanished from the Zhan brothers' faces. What was left was a grayish emptiness. Now it seemed like it was the two of them who had sabotaged themselves. I suppose my second verse is matched properly? Jun Moxie asked with humility. Zhan Qingfeng could hardly nod his head. As for Zhan Yushu, he didn't even have enough strength to nod his head. It was as if his soul was destroyed. Well, then, why not tell me what you did to ask those experts to help you contest against me? Jun Moxie smirked and reminded them. Don't forget the oath you took. We admit it's our defeat. Zhan Yushu wanted to go back against his words, but with the ominous oath and everyone watching, if he dared to curse the children of the family, his own family would expel him. Lin Qingyin is from a musician family. Although the whole family is famous for their music, they aren't very good at doing business. So now, their family has declined, and throughout the years, the Zhan family purchased all of their musical theaters. If they want to live on, they have to listen to me. There was an outcry from the crowd that momentarily washed away what Zhan Yushu was trying to say. Zhan Yushu bit his lips. The whole thing is my idea. No one else from my family knew about it, or I would have been expelled from the family long ago. This story will be continued to chapter 971. For those of you who are not subscribed yet, please subscribe. The interesting and best stories will be updated. See you again in the next episode.